Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. May I ask you to take your seats? Finally, I think we are ready to start. Welcome to the Danube Water Forum. We are really delighted to have you here. 3 years basically after the last Danube Water Conference took place 2019 in Vienna. Finally, we made it again and we can meet here in person. My name is Katharina Schilling. I'm the interim head of the technical secretariat of IWD. And obviously, not Raimund Meyer is with me, as you can see in the program. You can see his name written. But another colleague, and I will introduce her in a second. The reason why Raimund is not here, who is my counterpart at the World Bank for implementing the Danube Water Program, is we have some issues with COVID lately. So in the course of the next 2 days, you will see some adjustments to the programs. And the reason is exactly the COVID situation. So we have some troubles with that, but we will manage and we will adjust. And so why I'm super happy to have my colleague Katja Havens here with me from the World Bank. So Katja, over to you.
So thanks, Kati, and thank you everyone for joining to discuss this important topic of water and energy. Now, we've all witnessed the steep increase in energy prices and recognize the impact on multiple sectors, including the water services sector. So during exchanges throughout the past year, we've learned a little bit more about the challenges that are ongoing in the region, and then therefore decided to dedicate the Danube Water Forum to this topic to explore the issue and maybe some opportunities for solutions a little bit further. Now, clearly, we chose an interesting topic because we have over 195 participants from the water sector and from across 20 different countries. Thanks. So therefore, I wanted to say a quick thank you to the organizers, IAWD and the World Bank in the frame of the Danube Water Program, our local host, Schukalb, and with funding from the Ministry of Finance of Austria.
Okay, thank you, Katja. I mean, this Danube Water Program and also the Danube Water Forum wouldn't be possible without the support of the Ministry of Finance in Austria, but we also have a couple of conference supporters with us for the next 2 days. We're really happy about that. You can see the list here. It's Siemens, it's IBNet, the new IBNet, it's H2O Solutions, Hydromentory, Novamat, and Hydrofill. You will have the chance to meet them during the next 2 days. They have their tables outside. So during the coffee breaks, during lunchtime, please make sure to meet with them. Also during the conference dinner tomorrow, the welcome reception today. In terms of the participation, we have already heard, we have up to like 200 registrations, mainly from utilities. And we're super happy about that because the Danube Water Program is also made for utilities, so almost 40%. Also a strong participation from IFIs and government and utility associations. I'm extremely happy that we have a couple of young water professionals here with us from Albania and Kosovo. They recently, this afternoon, joined a training, a dedicated energy efficiency training organized by Schukalb as well. And now they are here with us today to also join the Danube Water Forum. So a special welcome to you.
So now just a brief look at the agenda we'll be looking at tomorrow. So first, we're going to set the scene and examine the current situation and ongoing challenges before hopping into looking at some possible solutions from innovative technology, financing, and the enabling environment. Then we'll do a brief wrap up in the end with the closing session where we'll look back and reflect on some of the lessons learned from the event.
Yeah, just a few words regarding the housekeeping for the next 2 days. I mean, you can find quite a bit of information on logistics in your conference brochure on page 24 and the following. First of all, as I've mentioned, we have COVID-19 issues, so please make sure that you take your own personal protection measures. In addition, we provide translation into Albanian. The audio equipment is available at the door. Yeah, if you need translation, please make sure to get it. We have the welcome reception right after, and I will let you know in the end a few more words about that. The group photo for the Danube Water Forum will be taken tomorrow morning in the coffee break. Again, we will let you know more details, but just make sure if you would like to be part of the group photo, then make sure to be there. And tomorrow in the evening, we're going to have our joint conference dinner jointly with the participants from the Nexus event. And if you would like to follow the event on social media, then follow the hashtag 2022 Danube Water Forum.
Thank you. And without further ado, I'd like to invite our first set of speakers for welcoming words onto the stage. So if we could have the people on the slide come on up, you're welcome to do so now. Thank you. Yeah, go ahead. So first, I'm very honored to introduce Her Excellency, Ms. Enkeleda Muchai, Deputy Minister from the Ministry of Infrastructure and Energy in Albania. So over to you. Thank you. And if you could turn your mic on, thanks.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for the presentation. Thank you very much, actually, for having the Ministry of Infrastructure and Energy of Albania in this event. First of all, we would really like to thank you and to thank, let's say, all the participants and organizers, let's say, of this event, the representatives from the World Bank, if they are present in this meeting, and representatives from the Austrian government, one of the institutions and one of the governments which has been present in Albania in the water sector for several years. And really, we were happy to see that the Austrian government is also, let's say, has provided its own inputs in organizing this event. The representatives of the International Association of Water Services Companies in the Danube River, we appreciate very much the fact that, let's say, this event has been, let's say, has chosen the capital of Albania, the Tirana city, the European youth capital, actually, of the year, and for which we are very proud of. And as we are, let's say, organizing several events around the city, and one of the events we are hosting is also this very esteemed event aiming the water sector in the country too. Dear representatives and, let's say, professionals of the Danube region, let's say, associations, water utility companies, and other, we appreciate very much your presence in Tirana. And we appreciate also very much the Albanian, the Shukal, the Albanian, let's say, Association of the Water Utility Companies, which has been also one of the, let's say, organizers of this event, and for which the Ministry of Infrastructure and Energy is paying special tribute, as it pays, let's say, a special tribute to all the participants, to all the friends which are here present today. Dear friends, the government of Albania and the Ministry of Infrastructure and Energy has had, through decades, an aim on the water sector, let's say, development in the country. But as a matter of fact, what has been happening, let's say, and one of the, let's say, major activities which has been carrying out lately by the government of Albania, our Prime Minister also primarily involved, let's say, in the process, as fully supported by the Minister of the Infrastructure and Energy, Mrs. Belinda Baluku, and our agency for the implementation of the policies and strategies, let's say, in the water sector, ACUM, is really very happy and delighted to submit to you the fact that all the attention that we're paying to the sector, but especially the reforms that we're undertaking, let's say, in it, especially with the support of these main actors that we have just mentioned, and especially the World Bank. And let's say, the possibilities that we have had in these last months to discuss thoroughly in a very detailed with you, what could be, let's say, the major targets and objectives that the Albanian government, being aware along with the public utility companies throughout the country, about difficulties and about the shortcomings that, let's say, has been noticed, let's say, through the years for the support of the, let's say, of the same companies is very important to us. It is really representing one of the main objectives that we are having, let's say, at the present. And as such, the forum, let's say the water, the Danube Water Forum as such represents in its aim, objectives and activities, but also in the involvement of all the actors, let's say, it embraces a wonderful opportunity for this ministry to submit and to present to you that we fully endorse this activity, the focus which has been provided on the energy sector and its challenges that practically are, let's say, forcing the governments and the public utility companies to revise, to improve, and to see about the ways in order to, let's say, find a solution for the shortcomings which are even becoming higher. It is a matter of fact that public utility companies are having, or let's say, are spending, let's say, in the worst of the cases, 60% of their total costs on the energy, let's say, power, the necessities. And as such, all the strategies, and especially the synergies between the, let's say, energy sector and the water sector represent nowadays one of the major, let's say, challenges, and also represent, and let's say, the object of a scrutinized analysis, which we have seen on, let's say, detailed in several parameters, most important of which represents the good management, let's say, improving the corporate governance of the companies, and as such, trying to provide, let's say, modalities, different modalities in order to increase the efficiency of the use of the energy in the same companies. But at the same time, especially under the let's say, under the corporate governance, but also organization of the sector, we have just recently, let's say, adopted a very important policy paper, which is represented by, let's say, let's say, main parameters in order to reorganize and regionalize, let's say, the water utility companies based on very major pillars, which regard, first of all, the respect and the safeguarding of the, let's say, of the autonomy of the local governments, let's say, institutions which are involved, I mean, as municipalities in these companies, providing the possibility to have 50 new, let's say, new companies, which are envisaged as joint competencies companies, in which local government companies are invited to participate with the, in this case, the extraordinary intervention of the central government. So this is the momentum in which the Albanian government, under its own perspective, has been taken all the very appreciative views, evaluations, which, by the way, have been there even in the hands of the World Bank experts, of the SICO, another Swiss, let's say, another very important agency helping the sector, Austrian, let's say, government's participation, and making value of all these inputs which have been provided in the years, and coming up with a solution, final solution, which we hope even shared with the World Bank, and especially with regard to the objectives that we have put under the program that we are going, program for results program that we are going to, let's say, implement hopefully very soon, to provide and to achieve the objectives of the economies of scale, and especially to provide to the consumers, to the Albanian citizens, really the so longed results on the water supply perspective, on the safe, reliable infrastructures, and also on the quality of the services and the product itself, which is very, let's say, which is the ultimate level objective as such. So we are very happy to announce this momentum. And just today, by the way, fresh as it is, our agency, our ministry, let's say, represented by our minister, and ACUM, has signed the first documentation, which represents part of the important framework, let's say, regulatory framework that we already approved. The first, let's say, agreements of the joint competencies, let's say, subject, inherent, let's say, three, let's say, the Durrës municipality, Korça, and perhaps another city that I don't recall, but for the moment. But this is a very important momentum, which even signs and emphasizes the will that the Albanian government is putting into this reform. But on the other side, we would like to accompany it with the major, let's say, will that we have to share it with all our esteemed partners that are here present. So under this perspective, and in order to not, let's say, take much of your time, which will be there in order for the experts to speak, we would really like to thank you very much, but really sincerely and deeply, for all the inputs that you have been providing to, let's say, the ministry and all the actors and factors which are involved in this process. And especially we look forward to have your input for what is yet to come, which is the implementation of this major reform by the Albanian government. We are here to cope, and please count on us on any step of the way for the upcoming, let's say, in the upcoming time. So thank you very much, and I wish to all the events under this forum best of the results. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Deputy Minister Muchai, for your kind words and your warm welcome. And please be assured, we're really very pleased and very happy to be here. Thank you so much. Now I would like to invite our next speaker, Ms. Elizabeth Gruber. I hope she is with us online. She's the Director for International Financial Institutions in the Austrian Federal Ministry of Finance. So Ms. Gruber, the stage is yours.
Thank you. Dear ladies and gentlemen, dear colleagues, on behalf of the Austrian Ministry of Finance, I would like to warmly welcome you to the Danube Water Forum this year. Let me start by saying thank you to the dedicated team at the World Bank and also to the IAVD for organizing this forum. I regret deeply that I cannot be in Tirana with you today, but I'm very happy actually that it has been possible to organize this year's event in person for the first time since 2019, and that I'm giving the opportunity at least to join virtually. The Austrian Ministry of Finance has been supporting the Danube Water Program for a bit more than 9 years, almost 10 years now. And we are pleased about the contribution it has made so far to the Danube region, ranging from analytical and advisory work, policy support, to capacity development programs, among many other activities. As many of you will be aware, water is a key strategic priority area for Austria's cooperations with international financial institutions like the World Bank Group and other international organizations. And the Danube region is a region that is very close to us in Austria, not just in geographical terms. I'm thus very proud about this cooperation that has been in place for more than over 10 years, as I said already, and that we are currently entering into a fourth phase. This fourth phase aims to foster the sustainable impact of previous and ongoing activities and will put an increased focus on the topic of water security. The traditional Danube Water Conference and the new edition, the Danube Water Forum, are, in our opinion, flagship events of the Danube Water Program. Your participation today and interest show the value that these meetings have in facilitating the exchange between national institutions and municipality associations, representative from regulations, a range of national, international organizations, the private sector, and many others. The topic of this year's conference, energizing the water sector in the Danube region, is extremely timely. We are facing a global energy crisis, and the surge in energy prices has already had a big impact on all of us and will likely be felt for a while. In my view, there is no alternative to substantially increasing energy efficiency in all parts of our lives, thereby reducing, in particular, energy consumption. We also need to make the right energy investments that do not counteract our efforts to combat climate change. In fact, we need approaches that help us to deal both with energy crisis and the climate crisis, and where one does not exacerbate the other. Against this background, and it's in my extreme, and in this view, in my view, this is extremely valuable actually, to bring together, like today, such a variety of stakeholders and experts from the Danube region to discuss how the water sector can be energized, to exchange best practices, and create new ideas and possible solutions on how to deal with the recent development. With this in mind, I would like to once again thank you for participating. I would like to thank the organizers for the excellent work. I wish all participants an inspiring Danube Water Forum with plenty of opportunities for networking and personal exchange. And I send my regards to all of you in Tirana. Thank you from Vienna.
Thank you, Ms. Elizabeth Gruber. And now I'd like to hand it over to Mr. Winston Yu, Practice Manager for Water in Europe and Central Asia from the World Bank. Thanks, Winston.
Thank you, Katja. It's great to look out and see all these real faces. I have to admit, this is my first Danube Water Forum. So I don't know what it was like in the past, but what Ryman and Katja and Walter and others tell me that these events usually are very energetic, a lot of debates, a lot of discussion. So I'm very much looking forward to spending the next few days with you all. Also want to thank the organizers, IAWD. Thank you to the Ministry of Finance from Austria, and also thank you to our Deputy Minister in hosting us here in this beautiful city of Tirana. I think this program, the Danube Water Program and the forum, really is a good opportunity for us to share our experiences and share our ideas. From the World Bank side, we're a global institution. We do about 25-30 billion in the water sector alone. And so we see across many countries the issues that utilities face. And so, you're not alone in the struggles of financial sustainability in terms of reliability of services, et cetera, et cetera. And so I hope through conversation and discussion, we can learn a bit more on how to approach this. It's great that there are some 200 participants. I'm especially delighted to hear that they're youth representatives because, when I'm long and gone, who's going to be running these utilities? And I'm sure, like many of you who've visited utilities and you look at the staff and you look, there's a big question about where is the next generation of water professionals. And so I'm really delighted to see that we have some youth representatives here. Now, I have to admit, I was a little bit upset when Ryman told me about the topic for this year. He said, Winston, this year the topic is on energizing the water sector. And I said to him, shouldn't it be de-energizing the water sector? Don't we want to use less energy? The comments from Elizabeth are on point. As we are experiencing a global energy crisis, particularly in this region, we see what's happening with energy tariffs. I'm concerned about the ability to run financially sustainable systems. I think in many of the countries that I have visited and have seen, and if you look at operating costs, energy is a big chunk of it, right? And so how do we de-energize? How do we decarbonize our water services? I think that's the objective of these next few days, is to explore that. And as has been said also, this crisis that we are experiencing in terms of the energy crisis is indeed an opportunity. I think it's a call for more investment and more also political action. So again, thank you to the Deputy Minister for expressing her commitment to this cause. I am also delighted to be here. As the Deputy Minister mentioned, we, in partnership with our friends from Switzerland and the government of Albania, are launching a new project here in Albania, which I hope will really tackle some of the root issues that many of our utilities deal with. And I think later this evening, we'll have a little reception and we can share a bit more on what that is. So with that, again, just to thank you all for participating and spending your time with us, and very much look forward to a successful forum and fruitful discussions. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Winston. I hope we can all energize ourselves here, energize our network, energize our knowledge, and then you go out and de-energize your utilities. So I'm happy to now invite Walter Kling, the IWD president, to provide his welcome. Walter, the stage is yours.
Deputy Minister, Mr. Yu, ladies and gentlemen, it's a pleasure to be here. It's a pleasure to be again in Albania. And I'm not going to explain IWD to you. I think all of you know what the association is about. What I want to do is I want to share some really personal thoughts, which I'm having, coming especially to Albania, because Albania was a country which taught me a lesson for my life. And I need to go back in the 80s, when in the 80s I was trained as a skipper on the Adriatic Sea, and we sailed from Dubrovnik to Corfu, and the lesson was very clear: stay off the Albanian coast. Try to be as far as possible away from Albania. If you're too close, you'll be in trouble. And I was just following this advice and did my sailing training, and years later, political changes happened. I was invited for the first time to come to Albania, and somewhere far in my mind, I had this advice and said, now I'm able to come to this country. And it changed my mind. And I just want to highlight really one person. I met Philip Chantris here in this country. And this was a mind changer. Suddenly, this country was full of friends, good colleagues. I was feeling familiar here. I traveled several times to Albania. And it was a quite interesting lesson for me how much personal relationship is depending on what your mindset is about a country, a community, a group of people. And I learned quite a lesson from Philip Chantris, and one is the most important, and I want to refer to that. It's his enthusiasm on the young water professionals. He was one of the driving forces in the International Water Association, picking up this idea of young water professionals, and this is what we need to do. And definitely, I also was in my role then as a vice president of IWA. I had the possibilities to support this development, but it was the enthusiasm of Philip Chantris who made me start really focusing on this activity. So finally, I came up and said, I learned lessons from people here in Albania. This is why I love to come back. And I think this is also why I'm really happy to be here after 2.5 incredible years where I missed to meet people. I do recognize that you all look like the ladies and gentlemen I met on the screens over the last 2 years. I see a match, but today I'm really celebrating for myself, and I hope also with you that we are together again. And there's nothing more to say. I'm really happy to be here, and let's celebrate the next 2 days, exchanging our knowledge, which we did virtually, but it's much better to go out to the reception afterwards and to join the friendship and to be amongst the colleagues here. So I'm happy to be here. Thank you.
Thank you, Walter, and thank you for highlighting this importance of community. And that's a perfect segue because we wanted to take a moment to recognize and celebrate the Danube Water Program family. And we thought the best way to do that would be with a brief video that highlights basically the story of the Danube Water Program, some of the achievements and some of the partnerships that have been built over almost 10 years now. So we hope you'll enjoy it. Thanks.
Cooperation and mutual support is vital for the water service sector of the Danube region. With its 80 million people in 19 nations and vast differences in legislation, regulation, infrastructures and finances. we launched a program to support smart policies, strong utilities, and sustainable water and sanitation services everywhere in the region, the Danube Water Program.
That the Ministry of Finance has been supporting the Danube Water Program since its inception many years ago.
The spirit of the program was really to offer a platform for stakeholders that would not typically have been talking with each other to get together and discuss sector issues in the Danube region. And so that's how many of the initiatives around capacity building, around benchmarking that the Danube Water Program is now supporting were initially born.
A particular added value of the program are the analytical and advisory services for the water sector in the region. These have allowed to have informed discussions with water sector decision makers on the challenges and necessary reform agendas, which in turn led to leveraging significant new investment programs in the water sector to make a real difference for the population and communities in the region.
Maintaining, monitoring and managing the good qualitative and quantitative state of surface and groundwater, as well as establishing and maintaining of adequate sanitary protection zones for public water supply system is difficult enough. By exchanging the experience, being part of regional-wide capacity building network is really useful.
What the Danube Water Program does for individual utilities can be easily explained. You do not have to reinvent the wheel every time you face a problem. As a part of the knowledge-sharing community, you have access to vital information. The Danube Learning Partnership is your gateway to continuous improving cycles. Join to improve without having to go it alone.
Participating utilities have successfully invested to save up to 35% of their energy use. Dozens of companies have developed their business plans during their participation. Others have developed utility asset registers. For utilities of every size, everywhere, the only excuse not to join is you are already on board.
And you need to compare your data on the regional and on a wider international level to understand where you are now, where you would like to be, and how to get there. In all these respects, which I have just mentioned, the Danube Water Program has been enormously helpful.
The Danube Water Program and its protagonists are amazing networkers and community builders. Their Voice of the Danube website has become the place to go to for all kinds of information and exchange, and the Danube Water Conference has become a master tent for everybody with a stake in the water and sanitation sector. It is all about getting together, getting smarter, and getting things done.
We will keep building partnerships with regional, national, and local stakeholders.
We teamed up with the Danube Water Program to join our forces and to organize targeted capacity building and knowledge exchange events, focusing on specific issues that are out of the scope but need to be tackled at regional level. Now, based on the high number and positive feedback of the participants and interested people, we consider the cooperation with the Danube Water Program highly beneficial, and we are ready to continue the joint activities and address additional challenges.
This program has produced very convincing successes, and it is now entering into its phase 4. It will help utilities everywhere in the region to deal with the growing challenges of climate change, rising energy costs, political changes, and preserving a healthy environment.
It is of utmost importance to build a resilient and water-secure future for all. And in that respect, we are happy to continue to support the Danube Water Program also in the future, dedicated to fostering water security and resilient recovery in the Danube region.
Thank you. I hope you enjoyed the video. We did, definitely. Dear speakers, dear welcome speakers, may I ask you to take your seats down because we need to move on. Thank you. And now, after the video, we are going to engage you a little bit more. I mean, we did quite a bit of working right now. Now we would like you to work a little bit. In the next 2 days, we'll try to use the POLEF tool a little bit more. So on the one hand, what you need to do now is ideally you connect to the internet if you're not, if you haven't done yet. For the Wi-Fi, you can use the Rogner internet access. If you're from Albania, please use your mobile one. There's no user or password required. You can either scan it, I'm not sure if it will work. Otherwise, in your conference brochure, you have in the back, in the logistics, you have the QR code to scan, or you go to polef.com, Danube Water Forum 567. And we will have some questions there, and they will change throughout the conference. And let's see if it will work out. Okay, you already did your job very well. So the idea was to ask you how much did the cost of energy increase in 2022? We get already quite a bit of responses here. We're not going to discuss this in depth or in detail because we're going to discuss that in the next days. We just wanted to check with you. So thanks for joining us in this exercise. And now, Katja, please take the stage.
Thanks, Kati. And now I would like to invite our keynote presenter and our panelist moderator to the stage. So Loic and Monica, please. Yes, come on up. So without further ado, I would like to introduce Mr. Loic Charpentier from Water Europe to give his presentation on exploiting the water energy nexus, energy savings, and reducing greenhouse gas emissions. And we'll pull that up for you.
You can come here, of course. Yeah, sure.
Just to make sure that I stick in my time. So thank you very much for the invitation to all the organizers. In fact, I will give you now the point of view from Brussels. So it's a little bit far. 0.5% of the member of the association or the Danube regions are member of the European Union. The other part will join normally the European Union soon, and I hope. But I would like to start with one data that is really important for us, is 3.7%. In fact, it's a global electricity consumptions of the water infrastructure. And we had the Deputy Minister mentioning the 60% for the utilities. So it's a very huge consumptions, in fact, for the water infrastructure. It represents grosso modo 2.6% of the global gas emission. And in fact, in Water Europe, we think that we have to embrace our societal responsibility. And it's why our board committed in October 21 for a net zero carbon sector in 2050. So just to give you some information about Water Europe, sorry. So we are the European Association of the Innovative Water Sector. We gather 250 members across 30 countries from the member state, but also for the associate country like Israel, for example, Turkey, or Norway and Switzerland. And we are here at the European Union to first collaborate, of course. So we exchange best practices. We push our member to reply to the different calls. The second part is also to advocate. So we are trying to put the right drivers in the EU legislations, because the water legislation in Europe is mainly driven by the European Union. And lastly, is to market or to implement the innovative solution that we develop in Europe and make sure that it benefits for our economy, society, and environment. And we do that by achieving what we call a water smart society. Just to give you rapidly the definitions, the objective is to really recognize and realize the value of water. So that is a most important part, in fact, because several policymakers in Europe are not aware about the value of water. To give you an idea, 5 years ago, we had an exchange with some people from the energy field, and they just told us that water is not a problem for them. So we are starting from a very a long journey with them. Secondly, is to close the loop and to avoid water scarcity and pollution. It's why we are promoting circular processes in Europe and reuse and cascading processes. And also we are trying to tackle pollution at source. And the last point is, of course, to promote inclusive governance, if I can say like this. So to put all the relevant stakeholders around the table to discuss. If we zoom a little bit on the water energy nexus, I will try to go very fast on that because everybody knows about that. But what is really interesting is we foresee a big increase in their energy demand worldwide, plus 35% by 2035. For the water, it's plus 55% of increase by 2050. So it means that we really need to be careful on how we deal with the two main resources for our economy, society, and for water, also for the environment. And the problem that we will see, and we are already facing in some region, it's a deficit. The World Resource Institute foresee a deficit between supply and water demand. This deficit will be 56, not 55. So it means that 1 liter we will forget 1 liter for each actions that needs 2 liters of water. So it means that 50% of our economy might not work anymore. And if I go a little bit also on the cost, about the energy sector, they have also to take their responsibility. 80% of the energy productions is water intensive. And when we check the water footprint of the energy sectors, and that is from one colleague from the World Bank, for example, we can see that here the wind turbine and solar panel are the best option in terms of water footprint to produce energy. The problem is that two energy sources are intermittent. So we need to find other solutions to make sure that we secure energy productions. And how can we do that, in fact? And here from the Brussels perspective, if I can say like this, we have research and innovation funds. And that it's really important, and it's linked to the Green Deal. The Green Deal is really at the heart of the policy of the European Union, and it aims, in fact, to build a modern Europe, resource efficient and competitive economy based on 3 key principles. The first one is not net emission of greenhouse gas by 2050. The second one is economic growth decoupled from resource use, and no person and no place left behind. The problem, when you check the narrative of the European Commission here, water is a secondary place or an accessory tool. And in fact, we need from Water Europe to raise the importance of water, the value of water, within this framework. And you have currently 3 legislation under revision in Europe. The first one is the Urban Wastewater Treatment Directive, which is the most important legislation for the water sectors. And here, what we need is a circular wastewater management. And that is what we are fighting for. And here it includes for us to exploit the value in water. And in the value in water, of course, you have nutrients, but you can also extract energy, thermal energy, but also, for example, with CO8 sludge, you can produce energy before creating products for agriculture. And it's possible because we have 65 examples of water and wastewater utilities which achieved net zero carbon infrastructure all around the globe. And that, so it's a very nice scheme from my colleague, explain what we are fighting for right now. So we expect to have the legislative proposal by the European Commission in October, and we hope that energy recovery from the infrastructure will be included, and also the use of the different nutrients and substances that we can find in wastewater. So we can turn the waste and the problematic from the utilities into an opportunity to secure the energy production, reduce the energy cost for this type of infrastructure. The second legislation that I would like to check with you, it's the Industrial Emission Directive. It's something completely different. It's only linked to the industry and how they produce emission into air, water, and soil. And water and soil are really important in that case, and partly water, because the Commission in its assessment demonstrated that this legislation is weak in terms of reduction of emission into water. But we have one key challenge here. According to UNESCO, you do not have enough data about water consumption from industry, including the energy sector. And here we need to get more data. And to do that, we need mandatory assessment of the water consumptions. And that is a big fight that we will have because the companies, but also some political party are against, and also some member states. And the reason behind is we have enough to do in our plate with the energy, and partly in this context. But if you look at the cost, you have CDP. So CDP is Carbon Disclosure Project. They are based, it's a foundation based in London, and they have an office in Germany. And in 2020, they ran a survey and wrote a report, and inside they stress the fact that the cost of inaction is 5 times higher than the investment that we need to tackle water risks for industry. So if you do not invest in water smart technology or investment, you are taxing yourself, if I can say like this, by the risk that you will support. And here it's really important because the IPCC report, the latest one, demonstrates that we have 4 main risks in Europe, and 3 over 4 are linked to water. And we have drought, water scarcity, and floods. And when we check the report, the most important measure that we can implement is water reuse and water efficiency and an early warning system. So we need to put that in the legislation, and that will be also in September. As regard to the last one, and this is more from the energy perspective, we have in Europe the Energy Efficiency Directive. So it's more or less a law who fixes a goal for Europe. And here we had collective actions with EWAs, so the European Association of Energy Efficiency, and we released a joint statement with 11 recommendations. And in fact, we had a bad news yesterday because the member states and also the parliament will not include water management in the scope of the energy audit. So meaning that they will not consider water management in the building, in the infrastructure, in the industry, when they need to assess their energy consumptions. And that might have a huge impact normally in saving energy and saving water. But we can achieve in another way. And behind the behind this advocacy action, you have the project and the water-oriented living labs. And here, I would like to zoom on one project because you have a huge amount of money, in fact, from the European here. And this project, for example, is dealing, so it's a next-gen and ultimate, we cannot see on the top, but it's 2 sister projects, and they are working with 3 loops, the energy, the water one, and the nutrients one, in urban area and industrial areas. And the objective is really to turn the waste of one loop into an opportunity for the other one. And I will zoom in one specific demo case in the regions in Timișoara. I'm sorry for my Romanian. But here in the utilities, they have two main objectives. The first one is, of course, to produce energy with sewage sludge, and with the ashes of the sewage sludge after they produce material for agriculture. And the second one is to assess the possibility to reuse water in industrial context from the urban wastewater treatment plant. And that is also important because in these regions, you might have water scarcity challenge. Now, in terms of projects, to give you also a full picture, in Water Europe, we have quite a good one because 70% of our members participated in H2020 program from 2014 and 2019. And we ran an assessment of these participations. And what we saw 3 years ago now, it's that the majority of the program and the call are won by the western part of Europe, or in the Danube regions, 50% of the country are member of Europe. And it means, yeah, I will go faster. And here it means that you have to come in Brussels to reply to the call and get the money for that, because you have a huge opportunity to finance your infrastructure, the innovative solution that you need to implement to tackle the water risk. Also another opportunity, but that was also raised a little bit by the World Bank with you, the collaborative aspect of dealing with water risk. In Water Europe also we identify 150 water-oriented living labs. So it's a tool to really put all around the table the different stakeholders, the large water consumer, NGO, utilities, local authorities, citizens. And the big advantage that you can get here is a better social acceptance of the innovative solution that you are putting, more transparency about the financial architecture, and also to develop the right innovation, technical or not technical innovations at the right scale. And I will stop with one remark to open up a little bit from the Callao Water Week. So it's something a little bit far from us, but still in the neighborhood for Europe. In October 21, the Commissioner for Neighborhood, Oliver Varelli, mentioned the Water Smart Society, and the whole has a method and tools to work with our partners in the Balkans, but also around the Mediterranean Sea. And I really look forward from my part and for Water Europe that this speech will not remain just words, but will be turned into actions, because it's really important for us, for our economy and society and environment to really build a water smart society all across Europe and beyond, and make sure that we benefit of that. And I will stop here.
The Albanian government has been incredibly generous in giving us smart people to help us brainstorm around the challenges of de-energizing the water sector. So I would like to ask Julia Haishadini up here. She's a Secretary General in the Ministry of Infrastructure and Energy, and also an accountant by background. So who better to talk to us about how we're going to deal with the financial dimensions here. Do you want to take a seat here, please? We also have now, not from Albania, but from Kosovo, Haria Marina here, where you would want to join me. Haria is an engineer by background and is with a regulator in Kosovo who, which not so fun, has a mainly coal-driven energy system, contrary to the Albanian system that has all that beautiful hydropower behind it. And we get to hear from and talk with Philip Wanner, who joins us from the Energia AG Bohemia in the Czech Republic, also an engineer by background, who will tell us a little bit what the utility perspective gives us to think about. Now, as the Danube Water team told us earlier, we're now supposed to all work, not just listen. So while I'm going to go a quick round first, and we only have a few minutes left to really energize us for before we get into some drinks to further debate what we can do. What I would like to ask you is use the link that you've heard beforehand and send some of your questions and remarks in directly. In a moment, after we're done around, we'll see your questions coming up. And in case you're wondering in the back, we don't need to do this here. Here in front, we've got our own little screen. So we can pick on some of what you're saying in terms of ideas, suggestions, but also questions. And whatever we can't deal with here up on that panel right now, the team will channel into the next day and a half sessions that we'll still have ahead of us. Plus, let's also remember the program going forward of the Danube Water Program is very much focused on energy use, because it is about resilience, about climate resilience and the long-term perspective. And the energy bill of utilities is a major, major part, if not, of course, not the only part, but an important part. But now going back to what we've just heard, energy prices are rising to different degrees. We saw what people have said in their countries, you know, up to 200% in some places. And in many utilities, Vincent, I think it's a big chunk of the total cost. In some utilities is probably the single biggest chunk of cost. So what is it what you say will happen in your space from your perspective? You can just say price increase or cost management, and why? Why don't we start in the Czech Republic?
Okay, so of course the price of the energy really increased from 50 euros of 1 megawatt to about 200, 250. So we have to admit that these prices will never decrease to the original level of the price. Therefore, we have to manage the cost of the energy, and we have to really focus on energy saving as much as possible. And on the other hand, water infrastructure is not only the energy consumption, but also energy producer. So therefore, we have to focus to be able to produce as much energy as possible via better, for example, anaerobic digestion, produce more biogas, or putting more photovoltaic panels on our infrastructure.
If I could just go back to this, you say we have to. Do you see realistic chances in the coming year or two to actually start implementing some of that?
For example, our company has prepared a budget about 13 million euros for such projects, and it's really something we have to do just to show to our water infrastructure owners that we are not just trying to put these new energy prices to the water tariffs for the final consumer, but we are actually doing something proactive against these new energy prices.
So in the Czech Republic, you're moving. You're putting money to this. You're starting to save energy, put in new technologies. You're going to the Kosovo. You're a regulator. What can one even do as a regulator?
I would say that utilities shall engage more in conservation and reduction of energy consumption in all facilities that they are operating, starting with behavior change, but starting also with implementation of energy efficiency measures. In another hand, they could also start on generating energy from their own sources. As example, they could start with pilot projects on using renewable energy through panels, solar panels, as example. Start with a pilot project first and see the impact of this project, and then expand further if they have feeling that this, of course, they will have a big impact on reduction of energy use. In another hand, also as we in Kosovo, we are currently starting with a lot of construction of wastewater treatment plants. We have to look also to use this opportunity to generate the energy through using the sludge, using biogas in order that we reduce energy use. We are doing this currently, and we as regulator, we have seen as a huge need or urgency that we look for a donor who would finance a study in order that to see which are of the options of wastewater treatment plants in Kosovo, in the Kosovo context, that would have less energy cost, will be less costly operationally, fulfill the criteria of environment, but also generate energy. I think this is the most urgent, because we act in advance before we have problems in the future. This is a very much urgent thing that we have to do it, and we are looking for donor in this regard.
And the price hike, increasing water prices?
Increasing water prices. Now, we just finished last December, we had a tariff process review. With last review, we have pushed to the regional water companies to reduce operational costs in order that we don't increase also water tariffs. And we have set quite ambitious targets, especially as regard non-revenue water, as regard operational efficiency of the staff, as regard investments that needs to be done to the sector. And now this is the first year of implementation of tariffs, and we see that we have some problems. We will have some problems that utilities can implement the projects that have been approved via tariffs.
So if I could just say, the comments that have come in on, if you will, non-revenue water, but also on efficiency target, you already have that as targets for the utilities in the Kosovo.
Yes, we have a set target for reducing non-revenue water, because we think this is very much linked to reducing of energy costs, not only energy costs, but other costs also, chemicals cost, materials cost, and so on. We have targets on that, but still our utilities still are struggling to have tangible results on this issue because of different reasons, also because of investments, capabilities, and so on.
And if I can take that perspective over to Albania, lucky Albania with all the hydropower, and we've seen that picture earlier that Loic was showing in terms of the cost of energy generation and on the water side also. From a ministry's perspective, where would you rather want to put your chips in helping utilities deal with the energy crisis? Do you even need to do anything on that end? Or as a hydropowered country, do you say, we're going to let that energy crisis ride it out?
For sure, the energy crisis was something that probably most of the countries were a little bit unprepared and was a little bit.
Can you speak into the
sure. Sorry. Okay. Okay. The energy crisis was a little bit unexpected, more or less, at least the way how it happens. But for sure, Albania have taken some measurements to reduce the costs and to see the possibilities that we do have. Actually, everything have started a little bit earlier that this was happening sometime in October, other than declaring the emergency situation for the energy crisis in October 2021. But our project started a little bit earlier on that. We have started some pilot projects with a combination of energy production through the solar panels in the water sector, in the water companies. So to support the water companies producing and supporting the companies through the PVs that were installed for the energy consumption in the water sector. Talking about and meanwhile, we have all the frame of the legislation for our production. So to support the way how the companies, the small companies can support themselves and doing the photovoltaic panels as an auto producer up to 500 kilowatt. This is a measure that was started sometime in 2020. So some of the companies were already prepared on what was happening, being so for this crisis and the prices that were increased. We are the biggest producer, and we have 99% of hydropower plants. The energy is produced by 99% of the production in Albania is out of hydro plants. The rest is the panels. There are small of them, but now that we're talking, we have the demand have been increased significantly, and for the photovoltaic we're talking, and telling the truth, we are supporting the companies that want to generate. There are some big projects on the photovoltaic that Albania have touched. We have started with 240 megawatt photovoltaic, 2 parks, big parks, 140 and 100. We have started, again, I'm getting back to water, a big Deskavica, big hydro plant that is a regulator of all the Drini Cascade, of all hydro plants, the other ones, the smallest one that are going to be there. And we are in the phase of projecting and finalizing the detailed project on that. We are supposing roughly to 200 megawatt the production of the Deskavica. And meanwhile, we are working, we have opened an auction for wind production, and we're talking for 150 megawatt on wind production. And on the other hand, in Flora, there is the project that will be out of LG, taken from the US LG, that will support the production of gas, energy via gas, with 2 big American companies, Accelerator and ExxonMobil. So it seems that we are in a good way for...
So the list is long. All the things that you're doing, right?
Yes, actually, and it seems that all the PV auctions were already done, and the contract was already signed when the crisis started. So we were, let's say, a step behind. Out there.
So during the drinks, anybody who wants to understand better how to work on the PV side of figuring out how smaller utilities can help their own energy bill, find yourself Albanian counterpart. But I'm curious, there was a really interesting question about where does it hurt most? Where does the energy price hike hurt most in the utility? On the distribution side, on the treatment side? Do you have a view on that from the Czech Republic?
Yeah, I think definitely on the wastewater treatment side, because especially energy consumption represents about 50% of all the costs for wastewater treatment. So reducing, for example, or improving for example, aeration systems for wastewater treatment plant can really reduce the energy.
So if I have to look at this then from a bit more trying to see where I can, if I only have so much money to save, would I then not try to focus on efficiencies in wastewater treatment rather than my non-revenue water?
Definitely.
That's in a way, while
I will suggest you focus first on the wastewater treatment plant, evaluate all the actual current energy consumption, do your benchmark across your water utilities, and establish the most energy demanding wastewater treatment plants, and prepare for some action plan for reducing the energy costs for this wastewater treatment plants.
And maybe if we can spin one of the questions that was talked earlier about drought a little further. You had mentioned demand side management. Wanted to see whether some of the water utilities and Kosovo can engage more with their water users, stimulate behavior change, use less water. Have you seen any traction there?
But definitely there is room to improve on this issue, on doing a more awareness campaign that the users, like our customers, use water more cleverly and reduce the non-revenue water. What I would mention as regard the question that you had, it's from our side, we have to work in parallel also on reducing energy consumption, but using also measures for energy efficiency from utility side, and then also in addition generating energy from water utilities. We have no time. I think we have to work in both sides. But one important issue which I would mention, and which is related also to your question, is very important for the institutions in one country. I'm speaking this now for Kosovo, that government is cooperating and coordinating with regulatory office and water utilities on the new projects that are going to be designed. It's important that the new projects are also looking for energy efficiency measures right from the beginning, because afterwards would be very, very late. This is, I don't know how it's in other clusters, but in our case, we have to improve this to coordinate. We had a case where the project design was finished, and we saw it that this would have a big, huge impact on tariffs, because this related everything with tariffs at the end. And therefore, we have to react beforehand, before the tariffs are increasing and before these designs are very, very expensive for the tariffs to be covered.
Thank you. So before the tariffs happen, you need to take the long perspective, right?
Yeah.
Plan for it well ahead. Now, there's a really interesting, there's a really interesting and complex question that we've just gotten here on the fertilizer side. Does I don't know, want to throw this to anybody in particular on the panel? Do we have, because it's I think very much at the front edge of the discussion about utility efficiency, is whether or not one can start on the wastewater treatment side, looking into producing fertilizer. In fact, I've just read that in Austria, I think there's 2 utilities who have undertaken projects on that, and we don't. Maybe we can throw this question into one of the sessions tomorrow, but it is very much at the front end of things. And I can say that personally, I know of Stockholm, Hamburg, and Vienna who have started experimenting with that at scales larger than just doing it on the side. And I do know that the fertilizer industry is of 2 minds in that, because it doesn't really help them in so far as many of the fertilizer industry members are fully integrated, including back to the mining side of things. So, but you know, somebody earlier mentioned, do we have a market issue here or an energy price issue, and is this an integrated market question? I think that is what we're having here. But if I may just come with the question on infrastructure, because that is on everybody's mind also. In the water sector, we always have to take the long view. And maybe we can just go here around the room and see, this is nothing that the water sector can respond to from today till tomorrow. What one can do is demand side management. Places like Cape Town have been able to reduce water consumption quite dramatically within a couple of months. So there's that. But in taking the long view, is there something that you and your organization can do in order to encourage also utilities to plan for the unplannable? Yes, you started a little earlier, but did anybody really expect energy prices to double, 200% and more? Not so many of us, I would say. So how can we encourage thinking the unthinkable on that end a little bit more? Why don't I start with Loic at the very end, because he's in the business of innovation and looking forward. Is that something that your organization looks at with your members, getting your members to be more focused on the unthinkable from time to time so that we can plan for that?
So from the Water Europe perspective, we are dealing with the utilities, but all the value chain that wants to be part of the solutions. So if they come to us, generally it's really to think about the futures and to see what we can do or what will be the risk that we will face. Of course, the best, I think, it's really to exchange between them to see what they foresee and might happen. Yesterday, for example, we have in the French speaker newspaper that we have 100% risk of tsunami in the Mediterranean Sea. So meaning in the next 30 years, we will have a tsunami somewhere in the Mediterranean Sea, how we will deal with the infrastructure, the coastal infrastructure.
And you're saying this in a Mediterranean country.
Yes.
So we're going to come to thinking the unthinkable here in a moment, but from what I hear you as an organization, you're trying to put your members together from time to time in kind of thinking labs also, so as to create some space for such questions.
And really discuss and try to really develop the most flexible infrastructure to face this extraordinary event that we might see somewhere somehow.
Now, they're in the business of thinking, right? You're in the business of delivering water. Much harder to think the unthinkable there. Are your risk management, forward-looking processes, do they look at this somehow?
We are now cooperating with the water infrastructure owners and start to implementing this energy efficiency to the renewable plants for the future. So we are not only reconstructing the wastewater treatment plants to meet the criteria required by the legislation, but also to fulfill the energy efficiency as much as possible. For example,
in terms of
long-term plan, exactly. Because it was mentioned, the new wastewater treatment directive, it will definitely focus even on the energy efficiency, so as well as water quality. So it really makes sense to be prepared and for the renewable plans. Yeah. And other possible guidelines is European taxonomy, which declares some technical screening criteria, which actually set some energy efficiency limits. I think tomorrow there will be some dedicated presentation for this topic. So.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think very much in line with what you're saying, the comment, we need to plan for the plannable first and deal with the unplannable after. Now, as a regulator, is that your view too? Can you switch on your...
We have to make sure that doesn't happen degradation and disruption of water supply services, which may have an impact on health of the population. And in this regard, we have seen that water tariffs needs to be reviewed in order to secure that investments that are needed to be implemented are implemented in order to have the same service level or to improve service level of the services. We need to do something in this regard. This is important issue that we have to tackle maybe by the end of the year, depending on the requirements of the water utilities. But definitely our utilities are struggling to cover costs because not that only energy cost is increased, but there are a lot of additional costs are increased due to energy cost. This would, if we increase water costs, also might have another impact. As we mentioned, impact on increase of other products costs such as foods and so on. But it's very important for us as regulator that we keep the level of the services in place.
Yeah. So for you, the unthinkable is that the services can't be delivered.
Yeah, yeah.
So from that perspective, you're looking forward, and I think what we're also hearing in the next 6 months, there may be painful decisions ahead.
Yeah.
Thinking the unthinkable in Albania, now that we just heard some even possibly more concerning perspectives than an energy crisis. What are you doing in order to, from the ministry's perspective, work with the water sector to be prepared for things that people in the day-to-day hectic of things may not be able to think about?
Actually, I will start with what is written there. We need to ensure the plan for plannable first and then go to the unpredictable. So at this point, what we are doing, we are under a reorganization of the whole sector, water sector. All the companies that we are just organizing because we found that there were a lot of problems that the companies on itself were having, other than not having capacities, financial capacities, and not having managerial capacities. And they were creating small companies that were not keeping themselves, not to talk about the investments because it was not possible. So we are now touching a new reform and reorganizing and creating only 15 big companies that will deliver the water. Now that we're talking, there are 57 to understand what we're. So this was for sure creating a lot of extra costs, mismanagement of the way the water and the way how things were organized. So being in this process and supporting strongly but by World Bank with a big support, and we're talking 70 million for this kind of organization and investment in the sector, seems that we are in a good way. We're trying what we know, to plan first what we know and how we can do better and being organized, and then to see and to predict after as the next step what is not, that cannot be seen now. So we are in a big reform now that we're talking, and I think that it's the good steps that we're taking.
Thank you. And maybe we can keep that question of thinking the unthinkable for the next couple of seminars with us, because let's just remember a year ago, we weren't thinking what is happening now. And there may be other unthinkables that are very useful for so output and service oriented organizations like utilities, their regulators and their ministries who need to deliver day to day, hour per hour, minute per minute, water for everyone. In the end, it's about management practices. Thinking ahead is a good management practice, but also, as everybody says, making sure there's water coming where water is needed and that it is of good quality and reliable and there for everyone who needs it. So thank you with that to our esteemed panel.